Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope, I hit the wrong button already. That's, that's not the way to start. Anyway, I want to say thank you to all of you that are joining us today. I hope, I just want you to know that we are so excited about this Expanded Effect pilot, and this will be the first time we're running it, and we really hope that it is incredibly successful so that we can continue doing this over the years, and and I just think about the impact that these grants are going to have. So again, thank all of you that are joining us, and for those of you that listen to this later as it's archived on our website, thank you too. I'm Mark Bogosian. I'm the Director of the Quality of Life Grants Program at the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, and as you know, this is the Expanded Effect Quality of Life Application Technical Assistance webinar. And of course, as many of you know, as you're joining us, we are piloting this new program, and it's only for previously awarded Quality of Life grantees whose programs and or projects have achieved demonstrable successful impact. And you know that our aim for this first cycle is to award approximately 6 grants of up to $100,000 each, and we're going to be supporting projects that are really focused on significant expansion of the strategies and programs that they have already done, that are evidence-based, show promising practices, are innovative, and really are there to serve all of our folks that are living with paralysis and improving their quality of life, along with their families and their caregivers. Just a few things that I want to say before we really get into it is, all of these grants must be completed within 12 months of the receipt of the award, and any projects that are awarded will start in July of 2019 and close in June 2020. Also, I want to let you know that all of the slides that we have here, they have embedded links. Those will be available on our website. So, please look for this, shortly after the webinar. And the application deadline, as many of you may already know, is Monday, April 22nd at 11:59 p.m. And unfortunately, the way our system works is, if it's submitted 1 second after 11:59, it will not be accepted. It's a hard deadline that the system sets up that we're really not able to change. So that being said, as many of you know, since 2014, the Quality of Life Grants Program has been federally funded through a cooperative agreement with the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the Administration for Community Living. And in adherence with our federal cooperative agreement, and this is something I will also repeat at the end, but it is really important, is we're unable to provide programmatic direction or comment on any applicant's application, or even a denied application, to anybody that is applying for our Quality of Life grants. And the reason being so is that it would be perceived as giving and providing unfair advantage to those that we respond to over other applicants. So in that vein, the Foundation is no longer able to provide individual pre-award assistance, either by telephone or by email. However, because as the Reeve Foundation, we want to be here for you, and that is really why we're here. We welcome you to submit questions about the application process, and we ask you to submit those. And I'll have this email up, and I'll say it many times throughout, but we'll show it at one point. Send all questions that you have about this application process to qol@christopherreeve.org. And as I said, that'll be visible in an upcoming slide. All the questions that are submitted by email will be collected, aggregated, and answered in a question and answers document, and we'll have that posted on our website. You can also submit questions through the chat box. I see that there's one up already, and I will hopefully get to that. And just please note that the deadline for emailed questions is this coming Wednesday, April 3rd. We will respond to everything as soon as possible and have those questions up hopefully by Thursday or Friday, so that you're not going to be waiting a long time between now and then to have any response that we're not able to get to today. So something that I do want to really bring to your attention is that many of our grants policies and procedures have changed since you have last applied for your previously awarded quality of life grant. Each year, as you may or may not know, through our cooperative agreement with ACL, we also are affected by various changes that we must pass on. So we're going to be reviewing those changes throughout this presentation, but those will be really highlighted in both the funding restrictions area and allowable expenses, and also the grantee requirements and award notification. But again, we will address those. All of these are also addressed in the program guidelines that are available on our website. And we ask that before you start your application, we ask that you read the Expanded Effect application and program guidelines. And it really is going to be providing information about this pilot program, and it's going to highlight, as I'm doing and I will do here, but you'll have something tangible to work with. It'll highlight our new eligibility criteria, which are also available through this link and available on our website. Funding restrictions and allowable expenses will also be covered, as well as application questions, and those are within the application and program guidelines. And again, the guidelines are available through this link, and they're also on our website. And as many of you know from the past, also on our website are various documents such as the People First Language Guide, and that's the guideline for discussing people with disabilities. We also have a guide to establishing evaluation indicators, because how you evaluate your project to know if it's really successful in meeting its goals is going to be a big part of the scoring process for our external reviewers. So, and we'll address that as we talk about, what these grants are and, what the criteria is. So before we talk a little bit about who can apply, it's important that you know that the Reeve Foundation is waiving its 2-year waiting period for former grantees to apply. So what that really means is that all former grantees that fit the criteria as noted in these slides and in the Expanded Effect application and program guidelines may apply for this grant opportunity. In addition, former grantees that fit the eligibility criteria that are in the process of applying for our current cycle of direct effect or high impact priority grants, and you would like to apply for this program, this Expanded Effects program, please just contact us at qol@christopherreeve.org and talk to us about it, and what we will do is withdraw your current application from this, the cycle of the high impact priority or the direct effect if you are already in the process of applying for those grants. And also, at this time, current grantees may not apply. But as I said, if this is successful, this pilot program, will be offering it again next year. So the potential for any current grantee to apply next year is highly likely. So who can apply? Again, this is geared towards previous grantees. And right off the bat, we just really say that, grantees that are in good standing with us. And what does that mean? That really means that you've successfully closed out your past award, you've submitted your your final report showing program success, and you've expended all of the grant funds. Again, nonprofit organizations, municipalities, tribal entities, programs that are based in the United States, and your previous project must also have been based in the United States or, continuing here within the United States. Previous grantee organizations whose projects have been implemented successfully, they've achieved demonstrable successful impact, and they're in the position to be expanded, replicated on a larger scale, or taken to full scale. And I'll give some examples of that after this next slide, that really talks about what are these grants. And I just want to say that you really are encouraged to replicate or implement your programs and or projects in that are already currently have existed, and implement them into new and additional settings, which would include either a larger local or a national level. And let me give you, because you certainly can all read what some of these here are saying, but that they really must show demonstrable and statistically measurable significant impact and an effect on those that we serve. Scaling these projects and programs to affect larger numbers of people, extend your services and access. Again, this is really all about expansion of a great program that has really shown impact and has affected the quality of life of people. Some examples that, and again, this is a pilot program, so we're, these are some thoughts. And as you all know, I myself, really play no part in awarding these, but in looking at the program design and what is intended from this, these are some, thoughts that, and I'm not saying these are, but something that would certainly be funded, but these are the types of projects that the external reviewers would be looking at. And, let's say, for example, an accessible beach project. You've already done a small, accessible beach project in your city, and you're looking to expand it to multiple sites. It could either be multiple sites in your area, multiple sites in your state or region. Another example could be an advocacy program, a program focused on the rights of those living with paralysis and cross disabilities. One that in your past grant, focused on, again, it could potentially be a city or a neighborhood, and looking to kind of bring that up to a larger scale, focusing on even a region or brought to a national level. And I'm not specifically saying that, but this is an example of a program that would potentially not be funded. But if you were looking for an extra piece of playground equipment, that doesn't quite fit in with what this grant is doing. However, if it were a playground program that is looking to expand through, whatever it's doing in multiple counties, etc., again, that is different. So this is really, again, about expansion, having significant impact, and really affecting the lives of people and their families with and their caregivers, as you'll note through the respite and caregiving grants. I do want to highlight, as many of you are, some of the new special considerations that we have been, are looking to focus on are, current military and or veterans and their families, as well as other projects that target individuals with paralysis in underserved groups of the population. And, underserved populations are really a focus not only of the Reeve Foundation, but of the Administration for Community Living. It's one area that we really want to make sure that we are reaching all of those people that are either parts of an underserved population, such as the ones that are listed here: persons at risk of incarceration or current or released prisoners, ethnic minorities, homeless populations, indigenous or tribal communities, LGBTQ populations with limited English proficiency, rural residents, migrant workers, low-income and or poverty populations, and newly injured people with paralysis and their caregivers. So again, we're hoping that these applications will really reach and branch out to affect the lives of those people within these populations. So, again, I go back to our current federal cooperative agreement, and I just, please note that in accordance with our current federal cooperative agreement, the foundation is no longer able to fund in various areas, and I'm going to highlight these, but I really, I know that a lot of organizations have received grants in these areas, so I do want to highlight them specifically. We're no longer able to fund research, rehabilitative therapy, and equipment. However, I want to talk through each of those because I don't want you to say, oh, no equipment. There are areas where we're able to fund equipment, and I will talk through those. But just to note that these are recent changes that have been given to us through our cooperative agreement. So it's really imperative that you review our current funding restrictions, both as noted here in this webinar and in our application and program guidelines. I also want to say that there are eligibility questions based on these restrictions, and they're going to be asked in the application. And a yes response to any of the questions will indicate that your organization and or project are not eligible for funding. You can see those questions in the program guidelines, as the application is included in that as an appendix. So just again, we're unable to fund grants to individuals, and we are only able to fund nonprofit organizations such as yourself. Otherwise, you would not be listening to this webinar. Again, as I mentioned earlier, organizations or projects that are based outside of the U.S., or if you're using vendors that are outside of the U.S., those are not allowable costs. Research is no longer funded under the Quality of Life grants through our federal cooperative agreement, and rehabilitative therapy. And this is an area that I really want to address. You'll note that here we say, however, programs that assist people living with paralysis to participate in exercise opportunities are allowable. And how I want to help you think about this is any program that would utilize physical therapists or occupational therapists that are working directly with the person or persons with paralysis is considered therapy. However, what I also want to say is that someone who has a bachelor's of science a bachelor's in exercise science, or is a certified fitness trainer who is engaging clients in exercise opportunities, that would be considered an allowable expense. So it's really in who is doing what, and what is the form of the exercise opportunity. And is it not only available to people with paralysis, but is it perhaps in a gym where and other people with cross disabilities and other people without disabilities would also be able to engage in those opportunities. Now, here's the big one that a lot of people have questions about, because when we say we cannot fund equipment, there are certain areas where we can. So it's really important to understand that we can fund equipment if it's part of a loan closet. Otherwise, that equipment, if it's given to individuals, provided to individuals, it's considered a gift. And that is something that we are not allowed to do through the quality of life grants under our current cooperative agreement. Again, if it's part of a loan closet in which the equipment is loaned out to individuals and taken back after a certain amount of time, that is acceptable. Equipment can also be funded if it provides access and or promotes independence. And below here we give some examples of each. And I will say them even though they are written here, just because it's so important that we can really understand the guidelines for what equipment provides, what it means for a piece of equipment to provide access or promote independence. So, for example, an adaptive stroller, or multiple adaptive strollers even, that are used as part of a program. They're not given to individuals. They remain on site. That would be the same thing as, let's say, basketball wheelchair. Wheelchairs for an accessible basketball team. That provides access. Another example would be a transfer chair at a community pool. That provides access. An examination table in a rural area where no such equipment is available, or any piece of equipment in let's say it's in this rural area where no one has access. It doesn't even have to be a rural area. It could be if there's something in New York City and there's no place for hundreds of miles that offer this, that is a piece of equipment that would provide access. Promoting independence is the other area where equipment can be funded. And the example that we give here is, which I certainly would never have thought of, is a scale, because knowing your weight promotes independence. It allows people to remain healthy, because as we all know, being overweight can lead to a number of chronic health conditions. The other examples, in terms of promoting independence, I also see as providing access. But, beach wheelchairs or adaptive bikes at a community park, or again, sports wheelchairs for a community sports team, that is something that helps promote independence, people living independent quality of, with quality of life. And again, providing access. It provides access to these opportunities for these, for the people accessing the services or programs. The one thing I do want to say, and this is specifically targeted towards anybody who had a past nursing home transition grant and is looking to expand upon their nursing home transition program, equipment may be purchased under the Nursing Home Transition Grant Program, and we'll talk about that more specifically in the allowable expenses. Again, looking at other funding restrictions, we have, really anything involving intellectual property rights. So that would be the development of prototypes of either equipment or, again, research or developmental activities. Anything, really. involving intellectual property rights, we are not able to fund. This next one is a big one, and I do want to talk about it because it's something that is new to most of you, and as we look at it, we can unpack this a little. So construction of buildings and or major construction. You'll note we say, funds may support simple accessibility modifications to existing structures, playgrounds, trails. We can also provide funds to support simple accessibility modifications to to an office building, to an employment, a center, a place that offers employment classes, etc. So just anything that has an existing structure that we're going to be helping to make accessible, by either, let's say, adding door handles or electric door, door openers or ramps. Anything that is, would not be adding a new wing, adding a new, wall, ceilings, flooring to a building. If there's an existing bathroom that needed modifications, that would be allowable. The rest of these, you can certainly look through. Lobbying, as always, is something that we cannot fund. Projects that have already been completed is something that we cannot fund. So, we cannot, fund a project that has been completed and is just, looking for us to then reimburse the program. And then this last one is just, the tricky one as always, and we see it always coming up, and it's the one major area. I mean, all of these are obviously major areas, but we cannot fund food in any way, whether that be a meal or, a lunch, a beverage, alcohol, water even. So it's, anything that would be considered food, we're not able to fund, again, under our cooperative agreement and medical services. So I want to talk a little bit about the, the Expanded Effect Quality of Life grants and kind of what they can support. And, as your past grants have, we can really support a wide range of programmatic expenses for a very large range of programs and services. So again, even when we look at all of the areas that, whether it be accessible sports or arts programs or education, all of those that were funded under previous grants we're still able to fund in those areas, and those are all listed within the program guidelines. But what we can support is, we can support programmatic personnel. We can support consultants and contracted workers. We can support entry fees, transportation costs, facility rentals, travel reimbursement. However, within the travel reimbursement, there are certain restrictions and caps, but let's say $450 for airfare. That is a cap. There's also various per diem, and I can make sure that those are out on the questions, on the question and answer too, so that they'll be, very visible for you to see. Marketing is again something, and equipment. We even though we have all of those funding restrictions, we are able to fund equipment. And again, another example would be the playground that is looking to obtain an accessible merry-go-round. However, within this sphere of the expanded effect, it would again need to be a larger program. But within that program, that would be an allowable cost. Something that's really important to keep in mind, though, is that programmatic expenses directly related to serving individuals with paralysis and their families are considered more favorable than operational expenses and or large capital projects. So I want to touch on the nursing home transition because, again, this is the one area that is different from others. And so in general, those of you who have the nursing home transition program grants previously, you know that the funds can support centers for independent living and other organizations that provide transition services across the country to transition people with paralysis who are living in nursing homes back into their homes or into a community-based setting of their choice. But in addition, projects that focus on diversion are also considered. And, diversion, keeping people with paralysis who are at risk for entering into a nursing home, keeping them from entering a nursing home is certainly, one of the areas that are considered. So I want to talk a little bit about each of these here, startup costs, which could be housing deposits, fees for, filing a legal document, equipment, medical devices, assistive technology, Hoyer lifts, any type of adaptive equipment. Those are allowable under the nursing home transition. An example, that under supplies that I thought was really helpful in seeing is that, we can help with startup supplies and general home furnishings, but that could even include a stove or a washer, a stove where, somebody who is in a wheelchair is not able to turn on the knobs on the top of the stove, but however, if the stove had knobs on the front that makes it accessible, that would be an allowable expense, as would even a washer or dryer that, again, promotes independent living for somebody who is really transitioning out of a nursing home, keeping them from entering a nursing home so that they can live independently. Expanding personnel capacity is also an area under nursing home transitions. And, funds can be allotted to expand personnel capacity so that staff time could be used to transition individuals. And an example of that could be, a part-time role could be converted into a full-time position, to either complete more assessments or do in-person visits. So, again, for those of you that do have nursing home transition projects, allowable expenses under that category is really much more open. I want to transition now into accessing the online grants portal. Again, I see that we have a couple of questions in the queue. I will try to look at those as we go on, but also, again, please keep adding them. We will respond to them and have them all in one document so that everyone can see. So accessing the grants portal, all of our applications, as you know, having been former grantees, are completed through this link on our that gives you access to our online grants portal. You can also copy and cut and paste that URL and insert it into your web browser. And all of this, too, as you know, is accessible through our website and even in the Expanded Effect grant application and program guidelines. And here, I know you all know these, you've used them before, but please be sure to add the QOL at christopherreeve.org and the administrator at Grant Interface into your acceptable and allowable email lists. And that's just to avoid having any communications with us blocked by, any spam blocker software, because this is how we'll communicate to you, and mostly through the administrator at Grant interface, because that is going through our online portal. So after clicking on the link to access the Reeve Foundation Grant Portal, you will be brought to this logon page, and many of you, of course, if not all of you, have seen this before. And you're going to click on the link for the Grants Portal, but here's the point I want to stress, is that you need to enter an email address and password that is already connected with the organization's account. Now, if you don't remember the password, click on Forgot Your Password, and you'll receive one by email with the information. And if you don't remember, or if you don't have access to the email account related to the organization, please contact us, again, at qol@christopherreeve.org for assistance. What we please ask you not to do is please do not create another organization profile. And the reason for that is that the organizational profile that already exists has all of your history in it. So it has your reports, it has your requests, it has if there was an extension, it has all of the information and history. So we just really ask that if you're unsure of how you logged in the past, just contact us and we'll certainly be able to help you. The other thing that I want to say is while you're in there, please be sure to review your organizational and contact profiles and just update them with the most current information. Again, this is how we can be in touch with you and share information with you, not just about updates, but if for example, if something's missing from your report, and sometimes something gets uploaded incorrectly if it's not the correct document and we need to reach out to you. So just please do make sure that everything is current and up to date. So once you've applied, once you've created your or entered, because you've already long ago created your account. So once you've logged on to the portal, you're brought to this apply page, and all that you need to do from here is it will only be open for the Expanded Effect Quality of Life grants, and you hit the apply button. Again, please just be aware of our deadline, Monday, April 22nd, and again, 11:59. The system the system is very strict, as some electronic systems can be. There's no human aspect to it in many ways. So once you click on the apply button, you're going to be brought directly to the application. And just if you want to print out the application questions, just please click on the question list button. That's that little button in the upper right-hand corner, and a Word document will be downloaded. And just these application questions that are in the online application, they're already in your Expanded Effect Grant Application and Program Guidelines. So hopefully you've had the chance to look at them to be aware of what is going to be asked and how to respond to those. The list of questions both in the application guidelines and here in the online system, they include word counts, text limits, and what we found is that a lot of applicants, and you may have found this in the last time that you prepared an application for us, is that cut and paste from a Word document and just paste it into the fields. That usually is so much more helpful. You also are able to retain a hard copy for yourself in addition to having the online copy. I just want to share with you, you can see this here, but the application is broken down into these following sections. Eligibility, and that's where that eligibility quiz is. So again, it's going to list our funding restrictions, and then it will have specific questions related to the restrictions. So please be sure to read those carefully, because we don't want you to be disqualified if you should not be. So please read those questions. So we have the eligibility area, we have organizational information, proposal summary, proposal description, budget information, and supporting documentation. And in the slides coming up, I'm going to talk about some new policies that we have. So please be aware that there are new changes that have been made, both in some of the proposal descriptions, but also as related to budget information. And we do ask, please respond to all of the questions, noting that the fields that have an asterisk, they are required fields. And you can go in and work on this, save it at any time, and then come back to it. And then once you've completed the application, hit the Submit Application button, that blue button down on the bottom right hand of the form. So the following, this here is an example of some of the types of questions that you're going to be asked as part of the application. Provide a description of the proposed expansion project. And remember, I stress this, this program is really about expansion, expanding upon the incredible work that you've already done and bringing it to a larger scale. So, we want to know, how will it be expanded upon? How will you replicate it on a larger scale, or take it to full scale? How will this expansion project extend services? How will it extend access? How will it really affect substantially larger numbers of people? And just all of the detail that you can give us within these questions will really be helpful. You'll see by these word counts, so right there you'll see 10,000 characters. 10,000 characters is about 3 pages. We do not ask for 3 pages, but we give you the opportunity, so that if we were to have limited it to, let's say, 3,000 characters, and that's about a Word, 1 page of a Word document, we don't want to restrict you. But, as always, clear and concise is much more helpful than lengthy and unfocused. So again, that's an idea of some of what the questions will look like, and what the what the directions will be, and also some of the character limits that you'll be working with. We've revised the proposed budget line template, and I know this might sound a little hard, but you must use this budget template. Submission of other budget formats will result in applications not being reviewed. And the reason being is, we get hundreds and hundreds of applications, and in receiving budgets in all different forms, it's sometimes very hard to understand what the request is and what the funds are being used for. So we've created this form here, in which you would enter the line item, let's say for personnel costs, executive director at 30%. You would then write in what the total cost of the fund, of that salary would be, and then what the Reeve requested amount would be. So let's say it's a $50,000 full-time position and you're looking for $10,000. That is something that helps us also better understand your program and how it's run. It also helps us understand more of how our funds are helping to support the program. Again, for equipment, let's say you're purchasing a van for your transportation program, and if the van costs $65,000 and you're looking to request $30,000, please include both, because then what we do often is we're also asked for our own reporting to ACL, and they want to know how much of the funds went to support. So, in that situation, we could say, 55% of the funding went for this item. It's a way for everybody to really keep track and realize the full impact of the funding. Something that I want to say about this is that if you just really type it in and the total costs and then the requested amount, the sums, the totals, the subtotals, and then the totals, it's going to automatically formulate for you. So you type it in and it adds it in. All of the formulas are already there. And the budget areas consist of personnel costs, equipment, consultants, contractors, supplies, travel, and other costs. We also ask, as we have in the past, that you include other sources of funding and note if the funding is committed or pending. And you'll see at the very bottom there, all of the subtotal costs for each budget area that you completed within the template. Those will automatically be brought down to this area of this summary. So it will mirror that exactly. So, up above, it has all of the breakdowns, and then this will provide a summary. One thing that I do want to address that I'll actually address in the next slide is indirect costs, and including indirect costs. There may have been confusion in the past about what's an allowable indirect cost or if indirect costs are allowable. So I do want to specifically note that and talk about that. One other thing that is now also a requirement is the completion of a budget narrative. The budget narrative must include a description and justification of each budget category and line item presented in the proposed budget for the requested funds. So all expenses should relate clearly to the project narrative. What's important here is that I have found, especially as we've just started to implement this in reviewing some of the new applications that have come in for the direct effect and high impact priority grants, is that often this is the area that really explains what the funds are being used for, how they're being used. And we ask you and give prompts throughout each to list the expendable items by type, to quantify the number being purchased or the cost per item, and to explain perhaps the need and relevance of the item to the project. This is a really helpful part for us for both the external reviewers and the internal reviewers. It's something that they go to and they look at. In many ways, it's much more helpful than looking at the budget numbers themselves. So it's an important piece, and we ask you to really take a little bit of time with this as it really helps the review process. And here's where I do want to talk about administrative costs, because I know that in the past there has been some confusion. So a de minimis indirect cost rate of no more than 10% is allowable. And I mean, I don't need to say that again, but I will say that again. A de minimis indirect cost rate of no more than 10% is allowable. I know that in the past people have not been putting in indirect cost rate, but a de minimis indirect cost rate of no more than 10% is allowable. However, if your organization has a negotiated federal indirect cost rate agreement, then you may include your indirect costs at the federally negotiated rate. If you do so, we ask that you please provide a copy of your current NICRA document and include that with your application. But again, I know in the past there has been confusion about this, but we do allow a de minimis indirect cost rate of no more than 10%. So after you've responded to all the questions and you've uploaded the required documents, you simply hit the submit button. And I know many of you have done this before, so it's still the same process. You will then be brought to the confirmation page, and you will be sent an email indicating that your application has been received. The Quality of Life Grants team, then goes in and we start looking at them right away as they're submitted, just to make sure that all of the information that you intended to include is there. So, as I said, it happens. It has happened to me, where you go to apply for a grant and you upload the blank template, the blank budget narrative or the blank budget template, but you have the hard copy on your computer. That happens. So please, if we reach back out to you, we'll just say, we're going to roll it back to pending. Please upload the correct document and then resubmit, and then we're good to go and move on to the external review process. So some dates that I really, want you to keep in mind are, next Wednesday, April 3rd especially. That's the deadline to submit any, any questions, any technical assistance questions, that we can answer that will be then posted to our website. After April 3rd, we will not be obviously collecting them and putting them on the website. And after April 3rd, at that point, we're really only able to address very technical questions. If you're having trouble uploading a document, if sometimes anything can happen in an online system. So we're here for you to address those types of questions. And please, I really hope that you'll take this to heart, because we love the work that you've done and really want everyone to succeed. So we are here to be of assistance. So please do reach out to us. As you know, as I've said many a times, the proposals are due April 22nd at 11:59, and again, not 1 second later, because unfortunately the system will just not allow it to go through. We then have our external review period and an internal review period, and then the grants will be awarded and funded by the end of June. So what you're really looking at are, is a grant period of July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. And these are, year-long grants. I see we're coming close to the hour, which is quite rare. I usually run through all of this so quickly. But what I do want to say is, so everybody, every applicant will be notified by email if they've been approved or if they've been declined. And if your project has been awarded, you're going to be asked to indicate your acceptance of the grant, and note that once it's been received, then a grant agreement will be issued. Once the grant agreement is issued, you must then countersign that, and then grant checks will be issued once we receive the countersigned grant award agreement. So there's a few steps involved in there, but each one both provides information to you through the letters, and it also gives us a chance to get to know each other a little bit as we work through that process of awarding the grant and getting the letters out there and getting the payments out there. And also, as with your previous awards, we'll provide you with the tools to to publicize and spread the word, which will include a press release template and various social media and announcements, newsletters, other publications, and we always ask to share your stories with us so that we can get your stories out there. Your stories are really the stories that make impact. Requirements, you must submit 2 reports, one being a 6-month interim report. That just really lets us know how you're doing, where the project is, and if you're not on track, it gives us the opportunity to reach out to you and say, okay, how can we help you? Because again, that's why we're here. We want to be able to help you. We want your project to be successful. And then there'll be a final report in which you'll be providing impact as well as all of the other information in terms of expenditures. But we'll be looking at really measurable and significant impact in those. We'll also be doing site visits to each of these grantees, as this is again new for us. And we're so excited, and again, I hope this is going to be a long-running program. And as many of you have experienced in the past, as part of the final report, Vanderbilt University will be reaching out to you, and they'll be providing you a survey to just talk about the entire overall grant experience. And please, we always ask that you be candid. That's how we learn. If we're doing something that isn't helpful or is getting in the way, we need to know that too. So really, our goal is to be as helpful as possible. Again, as I've said numerous times, we're unable to comment or provide any kind of programmatic direction, and just in advance, I thank you for your understanding of that. And lastly, I just want to say thank you, really. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your past work and for all of the important work that you do. I've had the privilege of reading, all of the grants, information on all of the grants, outcomes of all of the grants that we've done over the past couple of years, and just it's a privilege to be here, and it's a privilege to be working with all of you, and I hope that we have the opportunity to continue to work together. And I do want to say we really consider you to be very important in what we do. We learn and grow through you, and we would not be able to do what we do if it weren't for you and the incredible work that you do. So please know that even if an award isn't awarded this time, if it could be next time, it could be another time, we want to be your partner. We're all here to do really great work and support a population that we all really strongly believe in. With that said, I really look forward to receiving your report submissions. I apologize that we're at the hour. Again, please send any questions to QOL at christopherreeve.org. We will respond to them all. Any questions that you have that weren't covered, please send them. We will, definitely answer them. And I want to thank, my colleagues who are on the behind scenes of this, Julie and David, and going forward, you'll be interacting with Lexi and Perul, who are part of the Paralysis Resource Center Quality of Life Grants team. Thank you again. I hope you all have a great afternoon and a really wonderful weekend, and I really look forward to receiving your applications and learning about how we can all move forward to make much more impact on your already important work. So thank you very much.
And that concludes today's webinar. We thank you for your participation.